Welcome and good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome to another episode of The Next Harvest with Avinash Singh, your host here on Real TV. And for all of our viewers, local, regional, and international, we welcome you to sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode on The Next Harvest. Last week, we spent a considerable amount of time talking about becoming a farmer in Trinidad and Tobago. The process, how to become a farmer, why to become a farmer, some of the benefits that you can access in the state sector when you become a farmer. Today, because of the number of phone calls and the number of responses that I got from the last episode, I saw it fit to come back and spend a little more time today in actually going down into some of the details of the incentive structure of the state. So if you're looking on and you're a farmer, you're a backyard gardener, you're a commercial farmer, you're an agro-processor, you're a fisherman, you're a woodworker, all of these areas, are you into bee production, are you an apiarist? All of these areas, you're an aquaculture farmer, a hydroponic farmer, you're farming with the modern use of technology, shade house, greenhouse, aeroponics, all of these areas. This episode is really for you, and hopefully I want you to pay attention where you can benefit in terms of accessing some of what the state has to offer. Last week we spoke about the requirements to be a registered farmer. As you know, most of the incentives and subsidies that are available to our farming population, it goes to registered farmers, and the regulations speak to that level of registration. And last week we went around in terms of all of the land assets that you will have to be able to qualify. And just to recap, of course, you don't have to be the owner of land. You can have a tenancy arrangement, you can have an agreement, you can be the occupier of your parents' plot, your grandparents' plot, with permission and writing, of course. And all of these areas, it can be state land, it can be private land, it could be freehold land, rented land. All of these areas that are dealing with land, you can qualify to get your farmer's registration card. And I think we also discussed the two types of farmer registration card, the green card and the white card, or the buff card I call it. The green card is more of the permanent in nature, meaning that you have all your land tenure in order and there's no issue where that is concerned. And then the buff card, in terms of if you are going through legal arrangements to get your land transferred, if you are waiting your lease to be renewed, if you are on state land awaiting regularization, and some of these areas that you can also access the incentives and subsidies. So in today's episode, I want to take you down the road in terms of what the taxpayers of this country continue to make available to the farming and agro sector, the agricultural sector. Because when you listen sometimes to farmers speak, sometimes you get the impression that farmers don't get anything, which is a total misconception. And I'm here to clarify and elucidate in terms of what and the wide range of incentives and subsidies that the farmers can access once you meet the criteria. And the eligibility is quite simple in terms of whatever activity you are doing. So we spend some time in getting registered. Farmers, get yourself registered. There's quite a range of benefits for you, and where you will be able to benefit in terms of a financial nature, and then you have in terms of training, facilitation, courses that are run that you can add value to your operation. So all of these areas, once you're a farmer, you can access simple things and in terms of how to farm and where to farm and what crops you should be growing. All of these questions can really be answered by your extension officer at your county office. Last week I mentioned the locations: Regional Administration North, Regional Administration South, and I did say that there are 5 counties in North. I want to just correct that. There are actually 4 counties in North, 4 counties in South. I was checking the regional head office as well, so that makes it 5 office that deals with incentives and subsidies and farmers processing and so on. So when I used myself as the example, where I'm farming in Chaguanas, and I would have to go to the Chase Village office with all of my documentation and be able to apply for any such incentive and subsidy. Going forward with this, the next harvest, right here on Real TV, it's going to be exciting. I know we are approaching the Christmas season, and I know a lot of farmers are gearing up to get their production going in time for Christmas. I want to take the opportunity to wish our farming population, God's blessings of good weather. I know this few days we have been under some heavy downpour. So while for some farmers, the rain is good, I know for some farmers, it's going to be bad, which will lead me to the next point I would want to make. After we talk about incentives and subsidies, I will share with you what does the state have in place for when farmers undergo excessive rainfall. Do you know that you will be entitled, and you can be entitled to flood compensation or flood relief offered by the taxpayers of the country and by the Ministry of Agriculture, responsible for agriculture. So back then when I was there, it was the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, and of course forestry formed part of that ministry too. Of course now, with the change of administration and with the changes and reassignment of portfolios and what have you, it is now called the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries. And then you have another ministry set up that will deal with all of the land matters, and that is the Ministry of Legal and Land Affairs, which will deal with all of the land aspect, because of course agriculture requires land. So in terms of the incentive structure again, some farmers might be willing to purchase their own agricultural equipment and machinery and so forth. And when as a farmer you want to purchase your own, let's say your own tractor, because I can tell you from where I come from, prior to me owning my own tractor, the cost to prepare land in the Chaguanas area could run you anywhere around $3,000 to $4,000 per acre. And that is for brush cutting, dish plowing, rotivating, and banking or draining, depending on the crop that you are doing. So for every acre per crop, it will cost you around $3,000 to $4,000 to just do your land preparation. So it will add up. So if you're a farmer on a 5-acre plot, for every time you prepare your land to plant your crop, you have to cater for at least $15,000 to $20,000 in just land preparation alone. We are not talking about plant material, we are not talking about fertilizer, pesticide, labor, and all of these things, and you, the farmer's time and the value that you will be putting in. So a lot of farmers would want to go and purchase their own tractor. What does the state have in place for you? So when you, as a farmer, wants to purchase your own tractor, of course, being a registered farmer, you will go to your tractor provider, the tractor companies. There are quite a few in Trinidad and Tobago that supply tractors for sale. Whether it is a brand new tractor and you are going to be the first owner, you can avail yourself to incentive of 20% of the purchase price of this tractor up to $50,000. So let me break that down for you all. Farmers, if you want to purchase your own tractor, the taxpayers have made available an incentive of up to $50,000 per tractor, per farmer, over a period of time. I stand to be corrected, but I think it's around every 5 years you can purchase a tractor. And let's say this tractor costs $250,000, which is like the average cost for a brand new tractor in today's market. It means 20% of that cost you will be able to apply to the ministry, and then over a period of time you will get back a rebate of a check of $50,000 for the purchase of that tractor. And let's just say you cannot afford a brand new tractor and you want to purchase a used tractor. There's also an incentive for persons willing to buy a used tractor. In fact, you can buy a used tractor and you will get a check and a rebate from the state of 20% of the purchase price allowed up to a maximum of $25,000. And what is the process? The tractor, when you are purchasing, has to be from a first owner. And that is to ensure some checks and balances in the system in terms of the usability, the functionality of this tractor. There's a form that you would have to go at the county office and take to the licensing authority, which whatever price you pay, it has to be verified by the licensing authority of Trinidad and Tobago, license office. So let's say you paid $200,000 for a used tractor. When you are going to transfer this tractor, of course, you have to have your bill of sale, your transfer form, your insurance, all of these things that are the legal requirements in transferring. What you would also have to do is get this form filled out, which looks at the price of the tractor, and it's verified by a neutral, or I want to say independent mind. An officer of the licensing authority will have to look at this form and allocate the value to this tractor, being a used tractor. And in that way now, the ministry will process the claim based on the value of this used tractor, because sometimes it can be objective. You might have a used tractor and to you it might be worth $500,000. But to the licensing authority for transfer purposes and for the value based on the price of a new one and depreciation over time, the condition, the wear and tear, licensing might put an allocation that this tractor is worth $200,000, and that is what they will allocate towards this tractor, and then you now will be able to apply and get your incentive for that tractor. But it doesn't stop there. All your tractors that you are putting on your farm requires attachments or implements, because if you have a tractor alone, you can't do any land prep. You still require the attachments that go behind: your brush cutter, your rotavator, your dish plow, your harrow, your drainer, your banker, your moldboard plow. All of these single attachments you would have to purchase at some point in time. So the state recognizes that and has also made provision for you to be able to purchase equipment every year to support your farming requirements. So in year one, you buy your tractor, you get back a $50,000 rebate on your tractor. You can purchase equipment or implements up to the value of $100,000 per year to be used on your farm. So an example, if you buy a rotavator, for example, or a brush cutter, and this brush cutter costs you $30,000, $40,000, you'll get back 50% of that cost. So as a farmer, you can purchase the cumulate of $100,000 worth of implements. So if you buy a brush cutter, a rotavator, and a dish plow, for example, and the 3 pieces of implements cost you $100,000, then that's a plus in terms of the maximization of the grants, the incentive, or the subsidy that you will be able to tap into from the state. All of your receipts and all of your implements that you purchase must be accompanied by a certified copy of a tractor, because of course the state has its checks and balances. As a farmer who owns a tractor, you will be required to support the ownership of this tractor with a certified copy to purchase this implement. And why? The state wants to make sure that you are really buying this equipment to be used on your farm, and therefore the taxpayers are making this money available for you to access and to ensure year after year the tractor still belongs to you. You still own this tractor that requires you to purchase an implement for that tractor. So in year one, you buy your brush cutter, your rotavator, your dish plow. It costs you $100,000 in implements. You will also be able to apply for incentive and get back $50,000 in that same year, or when the money comes available. So a farmer who purchases a brand new tractor and implements, you can get $100,000. But stay right there. We need to take a little commercial break, and when we return, I'll go into some of the other areas of incentives that you can avail yourself. Stay right there. We're on Real TV, The Next Harvest with Avinash Singh.
You're viewing Real TV. Thanks for choosing us.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Macon Construction Company Limited. Save big whilst building stronger. We build with our Macon innovative building systems, which provides high wind speed, earthquake, sea blast and fire resistance. Is thermally and acoustically insulated. Provides improved construction timelines and cost savings. We provide construction services from design to finish and everything in between. Macon Construction Company Limited. Building green today with tomorrow's technology. Contact or visit us today.
I'm Smith. Have you ever wondered what a man is thinking? Have you ever wondered why a man does what he does? Well, join us on our new show called A Man's Perspective, right here on Real TV on Mondays 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., where we discuss just that. The points, the clues to get into a man's mind, right here on Real TV, bringing reality to you.
I am Zalisa Budu Singh Rupani, inviting you to join me for the rebirth of Apne Sitare, Our Stars, a vibrant and spectacular show celebrating the incredible local talents of the sons and daughters of Trinidad and Tobago. Experience the beauty of our culture through singing, dancing, and musical performances as we keep the arts alive and shining bright. Tune in right here on Real TV every Sunday from 1 p.m. for Apne Sitare, Our Stars. See you there.
Welcome back on The Next Harvest with Avinash Singh. I am your host, and today's session, it's quite an informative session as we were talking about incentives and subsidies. And just before we went on break, I was giving you the clarification that some of the farmers had reached out to me in recent times in terms of what are some of the incentives and how to access some of these incentives. And we begin by talking about the agricultural tractors and implements that are used on agricultural tractors. So viewers, there you can see in terms of agriculture how vast the number of incentives and subsidies farmers can avail themselves to. Another hot topic, another area that well utilized by the farming sector and the farming industry in Trinidad and Tobago is vehicles for agriculture. Vehicles, the mode of transportation, where farmers use pickups and 3-ton trucks and 4x4, 4x2 pickups, two-door pickups, all of these areas classify as vehicles for agriculture. And I will spend a few minutes breaking down some of these areas in terms of who qualifies, how to qualify, and the value of the incentive or in terms of the rebate structure, how it works, and how can you benefit from what the taxpayers have put in terms of the incentive structure to help our farmers reduce their cost of production. And the end result is always trying to ensure that food in Trinidad and Tobago is available, affordable, and nutritious. And that is what our farmers' role and function has been and will continue to be. And it has to be with state or government support that will facilitate the agricultural sector. Because I always tell people sometimes, people don't understand how difficult it is to farm, to grow livestock, to grow plants, to go through climate change impacts of flooding and drought. Today it's hot sun, tomorrow is rain and flood. And all of these shocks that can take place on your farm can determine whether you are going to be profitable, whether you're going to make money or not, or lose. Because sometimes people equate farming with a gamble. They say it's like playing playway sometimes. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. And it's something that we have to take consideration for, and we have to give our farmers, we have to salute our farmers and give them the respect, because it is very, very hard work and a noble profession. And you will always hear me saying that I really salute and I respect farming and that profession of agriculture in all the subsectors. So whether you're a livestock farmer, whether you're a woodworker, whether you're an agro-processor, primary producer, apiculture, aquaculture, all these areas boils right down to the agricultural sector. So when you talk about vehicles for agriculture, somebody might say, well, as long as you have a farmer's registration card, you are entitled to buy a vehicle. That is a misconception, and that is not correct. And what I am doing on Real TV on the Next Harvest here is I'm really breaking down the regulations, because many times people complain that they don't understand the incentive structure, they don't understand how to access some of these grants, some of these funding availability that the state makes. And sometimes you might purchase an input for your farm and then go to the county to realize you are not qualified, you are not eligible, or the type of input that you buy is not suitable, or it's above a certain requirement. So too with vehicle incentive, there is a minimum criteria for the purchasing of vehicles for your farm, for your operation, for your establishment. And these are what currently exists. I would implore the government and the minister with responsibility for agriculture to really explore the changing dynamics, the changing culture, the changing technology of agriculture now, because what we currently use in the near future might become outdated. So some of these incentives and subsidies, might not be relevant in the coming years. Some of these incentives and subsidies requires adjustments upwards or downwards. Some of these incentives, need serious overhaul and review. And I could simply put, while I was in the chair, because I saw a lot of comments, people, when they saw the Next Harvest on Real TV, they were saying, well, Avinash, you've been there. What did you do? You've been in office. You've been in government. What did you do while you were there? And I can tell you, a number of initiatives we would have put in motion, because you don't wake up one morning and decide, okay, let's change the incentive structure. You have to have data to support the decisions that you make. And when you look at the incentive structure, one of the things that stood out was the oversubscription of vehicle incentive. You'd be shocked to know how much hundreds of millions the taxpayers pay to support farmers buying vehicles to be used on their farms. And then you hear stories of some farmers, the vehicles actually never set foot on a farm, but they are benefiting anyway. Unlike some countries, which is something I was looking at while I was in office for consideration, which is to look at incentivizing the outputs of agriculture and not the inputs of agriculture. What do I mean by that? In fact, it's not reinventing the wheel because it's already there in black and white for some of the sectors in Trinidad and Tobago. For example, rice. Our rice farmers are guaranteed a market and guaranteed a price, whether or not they grow 1 pound or 1 million pounds of rice. The state sector is set up in such a way that takes all of the rice off the rice farmers, channels that rice paddy to the National Flour Mills, NFM, and pay the farmers according to the grade, the paddy grade. So it's not a case where you as a farmer, you grow your corn or your tomato or your sweet pepper and you have to harvest, you have to go and line up in Macoya Market or the Central Market in Port of Spain or Debe Market, all ungodly hours in the night, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning with your produce, no sleep, it's unsafe out there, and then you have to wait for that market to open, and then it's quite a stiff competition because you are competing with farmers from all across the country to sell your produce. It's not a case like that. The rice farmers in this country have the luxury of having a ready-made market, where any amount of rice you grow, the state buys it from you at a fixed price. So immediately, you as a rice farmer would be able to know, well, I can purchase a vehicle, I can purchase a tractor, I can purchase equipment and attachment, I can put in technology, I could upscale, I could expand, I could bring in more workers, because you know, if you grow 10 acres of rice, you can upfront, you can calculate what your yield is going to be, what grade rice you might be able to sell, and then you can calculate your return on your investment. You can calculate how much money in rice you will sell that can pay your bills and run your farm and be able to provide for your family. And that is the structure that is available to rice farmers. So I'm happy to see the government continuing the initiatives of bringing in grade 1 paddy, rice paddy, from our neighboring CARICOM country, sister country Guyana. Rice paddies that are brought into the country and made available and paid for by you, the taxpayers, and then distributed to farmers so that they revive the rice industry. They produce more rice, grow more local rice. Hopefully that will lead to the consumption of local rice and then, creating an economy of scale where farmers can be profitable and then you, the citizens, can get an affordable commodity to call a staple, which is rice, which is all of us, we consume rice. So, vehicle subsidy. Do you know that all farmers registered in terms of the type of activity that you are doing can avail yourself to the purchase of a brand new pickup, a light goods vehicle or panel van up to a maximum of $40,000. So that's for a 4-wheel drive pickup. You can avail yourself to $40,000, but it's a little bit different from the tractor incentive because for vehicles, it's paid in tranches, 3 tranches over a 3-year period. So let me break it down for you. You go as a farmer, you meet the requirement because the eligibility is important, and that is something that you must know because for vehicles, for agriculture, you must have the acreage requirement for buying a vehicle. Not all farmers with a farmer's card is entitled to purchase a vehicle. So incentives on vehicles can be accessed once within a 3-year period. Unlike tractors, where you can buy a tractor once every 5 years. In case of vehicles for agriculture, you can purchase a brand new or used pickup, panel van, or light truck once every 3-year period to assist your transportation requirement on your farm. Of course, you must have the acreage requirement, which is 1 hectare. 1 hectare is required, which is 2.5 acres of vegetable production to be able to purchase a vehicle. In terms of short crops and cash crops, you could have 1.25 acres under production, and you will be entitled to purchase a vehicle and then get back incentive of $40,000. But there's also another incentive that some farmers do not know about even before you purchase this pickup. You as a farmer with your BIR number, and that is why I'm telling farmers today, get yourself involved in the formal economy. Register a business, whether it's a sole trader, a limited liability company, get yourself incorporated. Put yourself in the banking sector. Get yourself an account. Not all persons who purchasing from you as a farmer might pay you in check or cash. Some might pay you with a check. Some might want to do an online bank transfer. And I'm calling on the farming population, understand how important it is. Gone are the days that you will be considered, traditional, and you're there with your short pants and rubber slippers. You don't have a bank account. You don't have a registered company. You don't have a BIR number. All of these things, I implore you to get yourself organized, because a lot of incentives and subsidies, even accessing a loan to expand your agricultural arrangement, you have to be in the formal economy. You have to be in the mainstream economy to be able to access things like a loan from the bank. You must have financials. You have to have basic records keeping. So farmers, whether it is a copybook that you write up on a daily basis, what you are doing on your farm, my advice is to keep a record. Put yourself out there as a businessman. You are not different from the owner of a store that is selling a product. You are not different from the businessman who importing a product or over the online and the World Wide Web, bringing it, storing it, and then distributing it. You are not different from our manufacturers as farmers, and I said it in the last show. Last week we talked about how important you are. You're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're a farmer, you're a scientist. You're all packaged into one product called a farmer. That is how important your role is. So get in with the formal economy, because there's a lot of benefits. And this show, no other show in this country, will go in depth right here on Real TV. The Next Harvest will be clarifying all of these benefits for you as farmers, as stakeholders, as producers, as agro-entrepreneurs, that you will be able to explore getting all of the incentives and subsidies. Avail yourself to it. So coming back to vehicle subsidy, I spoke to you about the requirements and the land requirement that has to be under cultivation for vegetable or crops, short crops like your pimento, your tomato, your lettuce, and your pak choy. You must have 1.25 acre cultivated. But hold that thought, stay right there, drink some water, and when we return from the short commercial break, we will go in depth in terms of some of the other areas of incentivizing.
You're viewing Real TV. Thanks for choosing us.
This Black Friday, Fred's Marketing Poultry and Meats is bringing you massive deals you can't miss. On Friday, November 28th, from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m., the first 100 customers get free doubles with any Black Friday special purchase. Take advantage of unbeatable specials. Buy 3 counter chickens and get 1 free of the same or lesser value. Plus, huge combo deals. 2 restaurant fryers, beef clod, and mixed goat for just $200. Or stock up on fresh chicken parts. 3 pounds for $65, 6 pounds for $120, or 9 pounds for $150. Come be part of the launch of our Christmas promotions, only at Fred's Marketing Poultry and Meats. Get ready to party with a purpose. The GMVS Community Parent Support Group presents Party with a Purpose, the Cooler Fete, fully AC activated and sailing aboard the Harbor Master on Friday, December 12th, 2025. Boarding starts at 7:30 p.m. We sail from 8 to 11 p.m. and it's just $250. Bring your cooler and your crew, but remember, no glass and no firearms. It's good vibes only as we party for a cause. Music by DJs Doll, Smalls, and Chunks, featuring Rihanna Gopal, Amit Suknanan, Rishi Singh, Suresh Miraj, the original Pumping in the Sandman, and Tracy D. For tickets, call Crystal at 379-9248. That's Party with a Purpose, the Cooler Fete. Cool vibes, warm hearts, and all for a good cause.
The Ambassador's Daughter, weekdays at 5 p.m., only on Real TV.
Welcome back to The Next Harvest with your host, Avinash Singh. You are looking at Real TV, and I want to welcome all of our viewers, local, regional, international, and those online on the Tigu app. I say welcome and thank you for joining me in this program, The Next Harvest. And before we went to a short break, I was giving you some of the examples and some of the criteria in terms of registered farmers purchasing vehicles for their farming operation and what is the criteria or how to access this incentive. And I was giving you the example in terms of the acreage that are required, because not all farmers with a farmer's identification card can access this incentive of purchasing a vehicle for your farm. And that is something that, since last week to now, I have received a number of calls and a lot of persons have been reaching out with specific questions about their own farming operation. And that is something we here in Real TV intend to do and we intend to explore in the coming weeks. We will be looking to open up the lines, entertain live call-ins, entertain our social media platforms for questions and answers, and we will be able to take this program, The Next Harvest, throughout the length and breadth of our farming landscape, both right here locally and regionally. Because I have received a number of interests of persons wanting to inquire how to source products from Trinidad, how to link restaurants and hotels that buy produce up the islands. They want to be connected to our farmers right here in Trinidad. That is the reach of this program, The Next Harvest. And that is the visionary steps we here in Real TV we will be looking to do. We will be linking the markets, linking the consumers, linking our customers, linking our CARICOM territory of food producers, consumers, markets, to be able to really sustain an agricultural economy right here in the Caribbean that is worthwhile to produce safe food for consumption. So as we discuss vehicles that are used on agricultural establishments, and I'm speaking to you about what the state has put in place for registered farmers to be able to access, and we are drilling down now into the details, into the nitty-gritty in terms of how the fine prints, we call it. Sometimes you buy something and you don't know what you will be entitled to. Again, not all farmers with a farmer's card are eligible to purchase a vehicle for agricultural purposes. Because in the case of the regulation, and I know this regulation is a work in progress, all governments of the day, they come in, they look at this regulation, and they review, they move with time, they increase, they adjust, they add new incentives to it. So I am working with what currently exists. I'll be happy to see if, a new product offering is made available by the government in terms of being able to access new incentives, new subsidies, increase in the quantum and the viability of those coming back to you, the farming population. So we were looking at the acreage requirement in farmers purchasing a vehicle. And we were talking about vegetable crops or field crops. Farmers that are planting short crops, your bodi, your pak choy, your lettuce, all of these cash crops that we call it, and your short crops, you require a minimum of 1.25 acre of land cultivated to access the purchase of a vehicle, whether it be a two-wheel drive pickup, a four-wheel drive pickup, a closed panel van, or generally vehicles that are classified light goods vehicle, or vehicles under the MGW of 2950 kilograms. So there's a number of brands. I wouldn't spend too much time going into the brands of vehicles and all of that. I'll leave that for you to do to decide, because you are the persons who would have to know what vehicle will best suit your terrain, what vehicle will best suit the transport of certain items. And I could tell you sometimes persons that are in the poultry industry, persons that are doing layer production for eggs, they want a closed transportation method. So whether it be a closed panel van or a mini truck with a tray that can cover, some of those things that are suitable, you will go and you will purchase for your farm. When you talk about farmers doing food crops or mixed crops and vegetables, you are required to have 1 hectare of land, which is 2.5 acres of cultivation, to be able to access a vehicle. When you look at farmers who sometimes do mixed crop methods, where you have crops and livestock, you have to have a minimum of 1 hectare as well, 2.5 hectares. Tree crops, things like your coconut, your citrus, your coffee, your breadfruit, your mangoes, those tree crops that you plant and it stay in your estate for a number of years, those types of cultivation require you to have 2 hectares. 2 hectares, which is 5 acres of land cultivated, to be able to purchase a vehicle and claim an incentive or a subsidy. When you look at ornamental crops and nurseries, you are required to have 1/4 hectare in production, 1/4 of production, and you will be able to buy a vehicle for agricultural purposes. Not forgetting the livestock industry, because of course, if you're a livestock farmer, you can also avail yourself to a plethora of incentives and subsidies from the state. And if you are a livestock farmer and you want to purchase a vehicle, these are the requirements you need to meet. So if you're a dairy or beef farmer, cattle or beef, 10 animal must be your minimum. You must have 10 adult animal on your farm and more. So 10 animal should be your minimum to be able to purchase a vehicle for transportation purposes. For our pig producers, a minimum of 10 breeding animal or 60 fatteners. As we are coming close to Christmas, there are a number of farmers that I know who would go to the breeders, the pig breeders in the country, and they will buy 100, 200 fatteners. And fatteners are pigs that are, weaned off their mothers and are sent to a different production stream to be able to fatten for sale for the Christmas season as we approach Christmas season. So if you have a minimum of 10 breeding animal, or you have 60 fatteners on your farm, you are entitled to purchase a vehicle for your farm for transportation purposes. Poultry farmers, if you have a minimum of 10,000 broilers or ducks at any one point in time on your farm, you will be entitled to purchase a vehicle for transportation purposes. Goat and sheep farmers, our small ruminants, you must have a minimum of 20 breeding animal, whether it is goat or sheep, and you will be entitled to purchase a vehicle for agricultural purposes. So if you have 10 sheep, I'm sorry, you will not be able to buy a vehicle and access this $40,000 grant. You must have 20 breeding animal, whether it is goat or sheep on your farm, and you will be entitled to purchase a vehicle. Not forgetting the persons that are doing rabbit farming, a minimum of 20 does or 100 fatteners is the requirement, the minimum requirement for you to be able to purchase a vehicle for your farm. Persons that are in the apiculture sector or apiarists, persons who are rearing bees that produce honey, you can also avail yourself to purchase a vehicle for your farm. You require a minimum of 30 colonies or 30 of those bee boxes, 1 colony per box, and you will be entitled to purchase a vehicle for agricultural purposes. Or fisherman. A lot of fishermen, are calling and asking, well, could we also purchase, apart from buying a boat engine, which they can purchase and get, a level of rebate back on. Persons in the fishing industry can also purchase pirogues and be able to get a vehicle subsidy as well. So if you're the owner of 3 to 5 pirogues, or for the larger type fisherman now, the owner of 1 or more those industrial types of boats, you will be entitled to purchase a vehicle for transportation, of course, to transport your gas, your fishing gear, and all of the things, the ice, all of these things, to transport from your supplier to the bay where your boat would be kept, and in terms for fishing purposes for you to be able to access. So all of these areas that are involved in agriculture, you are entitled to purchase a vehicle once you meet the minimum requirement. And some of these things I really want to call on the ministry and the government to look at and to review. I really would want us to review, because in the terms of poultry, for example, you as a small farmer may not have the capacity to do 10,000 broilers or ducks. 10,000 broilers or ducks is quite in my estimation, a significant operation. Or 3,000 layers, which is the minimum for layers at any one point in time. You might have a small scale backyard arrangement of, let's say, 500 layers, 1,000 layers. You might be supplying or supporting your communal supermarkets and groceries and mom and pop shops. You are left out from the incentive structure. And these are some of the things I would want to see, even in my time I was exploring in terms of reviewing and bringing down the criteria to accommodate the small farmers and the smaller type farmers. In terms of the fishery sector, why should we only grant persons who are owning 3 to 5 pirogues? Suppose you have 1 pirogue, you are left out. And these are some of the things, and that is why I say the incentives regulation is a work in progress. It's something that we have to keep constantly reviewing, and it's something that we have to continuously modify, keep up with time, and make changes. So I've gone through the eligibility or the criteria to access the vehicles incentive on the regulation that all persons in the agricultural sector can avail themselves in purchasing a vehicle for agriculture. And I did indicate the value of that incentive, which is 20% of the cost of that vehicle, up to $40,000 for brand new, and up to $25,000 for used. And the same would apply when you are purchasing a used pickup. You require a certificate of roadworthiness and this is done by the Transport Commissioner. And you also require a valuation certificate from the Transport Commissioner or the approval agency, which is the licensing authority. And that only applies to persons purchasing a used pickup or a used tractor. Used pickup used tractor in the different categories, when you go to licensing office and you have to do your transfer and all of that, these are the certificates that will have to accompany you, the farmer, your receipt and your transfer, your certificate of title. Those documents will also have to be carried into your county office to apply for the incentives and the subsidy. And that is the way in terms of accessing the incentives and subsidies for vehicles. I know it's quite a lot. And in terms of wheel tractors, as I've indicated, you can purchase a tractor every 5 years. One tractor every 5 years in your operation. In terms of vehicles, four-wheel drive vehicles, you can access up to $40,000. And I was about to give you a little scenario where it's not just the $40,000 incentive you will be entitled to, but as a farmer, and that is where I just went off and told you, try to become, in the formal economy of agriculture, because you can benefit quite a significant amount in terms of rebates and grants and subsidies and incentives. Because as a farmer, before you buy a pickup, you can go to the Ministry of Agriculture. There's a form to fill out that you have to take to the Board of Inland Revenue, where you can access $5,000 off from the motor vehicle tax of the purchase of a brand new pickup. So, two bites of the cherry. One is via the incentive structure, and the second one I will share with you when we return after this short break. Stay tuned.
You're viewing Real TV. Thanks for choosing us.
When security matters most, choose Catch Security Services Limited. We are proudly approved by the Ministry of Homeland Security. We protect your home, business, community, and much more. Our services include professional baton and armed officers, specialized K-9 units, mobile patrols, secure cash pickups, secure transport, and pepper spray applications and supply coming soon. Don't wait. Secure your assets now. Contact Catch Security today. Call 622-6601, email info@cssl-tt.com, or visit our office at 30-32, Saddle Road, Maraval.
Hi, I'm Zalisa Budu Singh Rupani, and I'm inviting you to join me for Conversations with Zalisa right here on Real TV. It's not just another talk show, it's a space for real stories, real insight, and real impact. We cover it all: health, law, parenting, relationships, drug and substance abuse, mental health, social issues, and so much more, with expert guests who help bring clarity to life's most important questions. So whether you're looking to be informed, empowered, or simply inspired, this show is for you. Weekdays at 10 a.m. with repeats on Real TV.
Welcome to the Power Play, the most exciting period in sport. Join us every Friday from 7 to 8 p.m. as we bring to you all things sport. We break down football, cricket, basketball, all the latest sports in the Caribbean and of course across the world, right here on Real TV, your station for local sport. Real to the heart, local to the core.
Welcome back to The Next Harvest. I am your host, Avinash Singh, and I'm welcoming you to join this program. And very soon, as I've indicated, I will be opening the lines. We will be exploring full-scale participation in terms of question and answer, in terms of, I do intend to bring on a lot of agricultural experts, a lot of agricultural entrepreneurs, a lot of brilliant minds in the agricultural sector who are doing wonderful things. We do intend to bring them on the show for them to share with you what they are doing and, some of the products that are available for purchase. Even, I might even say, Some of the products are quite even better than the imported alternatives you can get right here locally. So many products that are done right here in Trinidad and Tobago that we would want to avail ourselves to. And that is what the next harvest will be bringing to you. Real TV is going to be the one that will lead the agricultural sector in terms of what you can tune in, whether you're a kitchen gardener, whether you're a farmer, a commercial farmer, an agro-processor. This is the program for you. And this is the program that will be dissecting the facts, dissecting the incentives, the subsidies, the grants, all of the areas that you would want to access. And tell me, it will be very, very attractive for you to explore agriculture as a profession. After you look at this program, you will realize that some of the best and noble professions is food production and to be a farmer and to be in the agricultural sector. Before we went to break, I was telling you about the incentive, and I call it a grant that you will get back, a rebate, before you even purchase a pickup in the Ministry of Agriculture's incentive program. You can go and access a $5,000 exemption as a farmer from the Border Inland Revenue before you purchase a vehicle. How does it work? You have intention to buy a certain brand pickup or certain new pickup for your farm. As I've indicated, my advice to you farmers, always speak to your extension officer. Always go to your county officer and speak to your extension officer. And it's good news to know that every Wednesday in all county offices is there's a day called Office Day. And that Office Day is when all of the extension officers, the senior staff of the county, the supervisor, the AOs, the agricultural officers, the agricultural assistants, they are present in the office in the county to deal with you, the population and the public. Farmers, you might have questions. You might want to find out, well, can I buy this brand of pickup? Can I buy that brand of water pump? Is the MGW correct? Is the cost, is the certificate, is the receipt, is all of these things correct? This is how I'm going to purchase the products. Good news, you can go to your county office on a Wednesday and you can interact with your extension officers. You can ask them questions. And that is where you can also ask them about this $5,000 exemption that you as a farmer can avail yourself to. So you have a pickup in mind. You want to purchase a pickup for your farm. You met the minimum criteria of the acreage that are required. You have a valid farmer's card. You have your supplier in mind, whether it be an importer, a roll-on, roll-off dealer, a firm or a manufacturer representative here in the country. You go to them. You get your pro forma invoice. You pay a visit down to your county office. You speak to your extension officer. You get that form to fill out. You take it to Board of Inland Revenue. And you make the application for the $5,000 exemption that you are entitled to. That will be applied upon the purchase of that vehicle. So if the vehicle was $250,000 and you go to the Border Inland Revenue and you get your $5,000 exemption, when you go to pay the supplier, you technically just have to pay the supplier $245,000 at cost. You get your $5,000 discount at the time of purchase. That's good news. More usable income in your pocket that you can spend somewhere else on your farm. So you purchase this pickup. You avail yourself to the $5,000 exemption, but there is a caveat. Once you entitle and once you access that $5,000 exemption in the purchase of a pickup, you will see a stamp on your certified copy of your vehicle that the Transport Commissioner will then authorize and say, this vehicle is not to be sold without the permission of the Transport Commissioner for the first 2 years. Simply put, if the taxpayers are fitting a $5,000 bill to you and you are benefiting, the state must ensure that there's accountability, there's traceability, and there's value for money for the taxpayers. You have to keep this pickup on your farm. You have to use it on your farm, and you cannot sell it before time. Because if you try to sell it before time, you will have to pay back that exemption to the state. So it's not that you can't sell it. If you want to avail yourself to the exemption of $5,000 on the purchase of this vehicle, you will have to keep this vehicle, because on your certified copy it will be a red stamp that says vehicle is not to be sold or transferred without the Transport Commissioner's approval before the 2-year period. And what does that mean? You simply cannot transfer that vehicle until after the 2-year period passes. And if you want to transfer it before, you pay back the government their money. Pay back the government the exemption that you benefit. So you purchase your vehicle, you have all your documentation, and I tell persons, make 3 copies of everything. Make 3 copies of your pro forma invoice, make 3 copies of your tax invoice, make 3 copies of the receipts that you would have bought your vehicle, whether you had paid for via a loan, or whether you paid for via your credit card, whether you paid for from your savings. However you paid for the vehicle, your receipt is important. So again, tax invoice, your pro forma invoice, receipts of payment, make 3 copies. You wouldn't need to make 3 copies of your certified copy when you are going to make your first application. You make 1 copy. So you are keeping all your originals with you, but you are walking with your originals to the county office, because the officer will have to verify the authenticity of the documents that you are walking with. When you go to make the claim now, you walk with all your vehicle documentation as well as your farmer's card information. Your farmer's card, your national identification card, a copy of your land tax. The same documents you would have used to get your farmer's card, it's the same documents you will have to walk with to apply for a subsidy or an incentive. So, farmers, do like me. Go down to your local photocopying place or buy a printer with a little scanner and make copies of your farmer's identification card, make copies of your land tax, make copies of the land documents, whether it is the deed, the tenancy agreement, your contractual arrangement, your document from the lawyer or the JP giving you permission to plant land that doesn't belong to you, a copy of the last land tax receipt. All of these things, make copies, because every time you go to the county office to make a claim for an incentive or a subsidy, you are required to walk with this little bundle of paper which will accommodate your claim. So in the vehicle subsidy, your farmer's card, your identification card, your land tax receipt, your copy of your land deed or land tenure document, your certified copy, your receipt, tax invoice, pro forma invoice. You're going with this documentation, you make an application, there's a form that you will have to sign. The officer will take some basic information from you, as well as, and this is the critical point, the county office will take information related to your production or your operation. So whether it is you are planting, or whether it is you're an apiarist, a poultry farmer, a fisherman, the requirements are simply you have to be in cultivation or production, or in the operation of your apiary or your boat for fishing and all of these things, to be able to access the incentive for the vehicle. And unlike a tractor incentive, where you are paid a one lump sum check of up to $50,000, for vehicles for agriculture, you will be paid 1/3 of the $40,000. So when you break it down, you will get a check for $13,333.33. I know it sounds comical, but that is going to be the first check if you purchase a vehicle for $250,000 and above that is going to be your first check, that figure. And then on the anniversary period, which is 1 year after, you have to go back to the certificate of title for your vehicle and get a new and updated certified copy for your vehicle. Because the state wants to know, again, checks and balances, that you are still in the operation or you are still the owner of that vehicle. You didn't sell it and still want to claim incentive. So in year 2, you go through year 1 process with a new certified copy. And why I say new? It would be stamped on today's date. So you go and you apply for a certified copy. It will be stamped today's date, which will indicate that you are still the owner of this vehicle, and you make your year 2 application with the same documentation, and you lodge this document. It goes through the same process. The extension officer will call you. They will visit your farming operation. They will verify the vehicle is still the vehicle. You didn't do anything with it. You didn't sell it. The chassis number, the engine number, and more importantly, your production is above 75%. So on this acre and a quarter of, let's say, corn, the land must be 75% and above cultivated at the time when the officer is coming to view and authorize this transaction. If when the officer comes, your land is not under cultivation, the officer will not approve your incentive. You will not be able to get your check number 2 of $13,333.33. Of course, there's a little bit of leniency. The officer might tell you, hey, get your land planted, and when your land is planted, I will come back, I will verify, and I will approve, and it will be processed. And then year 3, you do the same thing as you would have done in year 2, and that is where you will get your $40,000 over a 3-year period in checks 1, 2, and 3 over this 3-year period to ensure that you get the full $40,000 or thereabout in terms of your incentive. Of course, some people ask, well, what if the vehicle didn't cost $250,000 and above? Simple. The ministry has a calculation that they will use 20% of the cost up to the $40,000 is the limit, the maximum limit. If the vehicle is less than $250,000, they will use the calculation, and then you might be entitled to get $25,000 or $30,000 or $33,000 or $32,000 based on the value or what you would have paid. So I hope that gives you some clarification as opposed to just going and buy a vehicle and then think, well, I have a farmer's card and I'm entitled to a vehicle subsidy because you see your neighbor who is a farmer driving a vehicle and you know he gets incentive and subsidy. So this session has been a real eye-opening session for a lot of persons, because even while I was in office, people have a lot of questions. People ask me, could I buy a heavy T pickup, a pickup that requires a heavy T license? A heavy T requires under the traffic, the licensing authority's interpretation is a vehicle over 3,200 MGW. So there are certain brands of pickups on the market that cross the light motor vehicle classification, and farmers, I must tell you, you have to ask these questions first before you go and buy, because you might not be qualified to buy a heavy T vehicle. A vehicle that is over 3,200 MGW may not be qualified to buy a 3-ton. A 3-ton, you might have to have a bigger operation, a bigger scale. So ask questions, go to your county office, visit your county on a Wednesday when there's office day, and you can ask all the questions that you might have, that burning desire to find out. And that is where you can get your answers. So today's episode, I think it was quite a valuable explanation and clarification. I want to explore some other areas on our next episode. I want to thank you for joining the Next Harvest with Avinash Singh. You are right here on Real TV, the station for you that we are looking at the agricultural future of the CARICOM region. Thank you, God bless, and happy farming.